Hello and welcome to today's video. Today is another review of a pen from Asvine. So this one was originally going to be before my review of the V800, but I jumped it ahead, the 800 ahead, just because it's a new model. This one's not necessarily a new model, but it's a revised version of that model. The pen is this. This is the Asvine C2000. This is a stabilized wood fountain pen, and this is the Sunset version. So this pen was originally released a little while ago and had some issues with I think it was basically cap seal and some things like that. So they took it off the market, more or less, and then have recently brought it back in a couple of versions. So there's this version, I think this is the Oasis version, which is like a bluey green. This is the Sunset, and this has got these swirls of dark blues and reds and oranges, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So stabilized wood, I'm not an expert on this, but as far as I'm led to believe, basically stabilized wood is wood that has been bonded or infused with a resin to sort of stabilize it, and they can introduce some really funky colors and things in that process. So I'm going to talk about the parts and features of this pen today. We'll do a writing sample, pros and cons, all that good stuff. So this is how the pen comes packaged, as is standard for Asvine. Simple cardboard box over the plastic one here, frosted plastic, and the pen sits in the little pen tray there. I really like the Asvine packaging for two reasons. Firstly, it's simple and it does the job. Secondly, it's reusable. I use those containers to store bits and pieces. So whether it's art supplies, whether it's bits of pen stuff like converters, nibs, those kinds of things, they're really, really useful. Okay, now let's take a closer look at this pen. Top of the pen is flat, very flat, like stand up flat, which is cool. That continues down the cap till we get to the clip ring here, and then the clip is very, very usable. It's got this interesting sort of shape where it sort of tapers in and then flares back out. The cap is cylindrical, and we get a sort of a slightly beveled step down onto the barrel there. You can see Asvine is engraved, I suppose, in there and then filled with this gold. It's in your face. It's there. There's no hiding it. And then C2000 on the back of the cap. The barrel tapers and then comes to this sort of rounded sort of cone end. It's one of the features of this pen that people either love or hate is the flat end and the rounded end. I actually don't mind it. I think it looks kind of cool. It's different. It's not just another cigar-shaped pen. Like here are two other big pens with number 8 size nibs from Asvine, and you can see they both have roughly the same size, same profile, all of that kind of thing. This one's different. I like it. So it is a twist cap pen, and the cap comes off in about 1 2/3 to 1 3/4 turns. You get a little step down onto metal threads there, and then another stabilized wood grip section with the same material. And that's mostly cylindrical, and then we get a little metal ring there, and then the number 8 Asvine nib, a nice big feed there. It is a steel nib. This is a fine. It comes in fine, medium, and stub, and it's a very attractive nib. I actually think it looks great, and on a pen this size, I feel it's pretty much in proportion, and it writes really, really well. I've had no issues with these number 8 size nibs from Asvine. In fact, I prefer them to a couple of other brands of number 8 size nibs that come on far more expensive pens. So that's a nice feature. It's a nice cap seal. It feels nice and secure. There's a plastic liner of some kind on the inside of this cap. Now, whenever you get metal threads on a plastic thread sort of system, there is going to be concern for wear over time. Now, I've been using this pen for a little over a month, I think, and I've not noticed any sort of chewing up of the threads. They still look in pretty good condition, but time will tell there, of course. Some brands are doing things like making Delrin liners. Delrin is a particularly resilient plastic material, So, you know, that's a nice sort of bonus there. When you unscrew the barrel of the pen, you see it is a cartridge converter, and it comes with the Asvine branded converter, standard sort of size, but not standard in terms of, you know, standard international. So I think this is that sort of Chinese standard there. That goes onto metal threads. You've got a metal liner in there, so that's nice. And you've got an O-ring at the end of the threads there, which really locks that barrel down. It's always another concern with metal on metal threads is that they can tend to sort of come loose. That O-ring really prevents that. This is a good size pen. It is not a small pen. It is definitely a big pen. It is oversized. It is big in the hand. It's a bold pen. It's a beautiful pen, but it is definitely not a small pen or even a standard size pen. It is a big pen. And you'll see that in the size comparison in just a second. So just for the straight up size comparison, here it is alongside a Lamy Safari. You can see it's a good couple of centimeters, or centimeter and a half longer than the Lamy Safari, and it's big, it's chunky, it's got a good size to it. But just for the sake of the exercise, I'll show it in more detail alongside that one in just a second, but I wanted to show it alongside a few other Asvine pens. So we have the Asvine J16 there, which is a slightly bigger pen, you know, sort of closer to like the Montblanc 146-ish size. We've got the Asvine V126, so you can see that's not a small pen, and yet alongside the C2000, it's pretty much dwarfed there. We've got the Asvine C80, which is their other cartridge converter. By the way, the C means cartridge converter, number 8 nibbed pen. And you can see, you know, it's bigger than that, and it's bigger than the new V800, which is not a small pen once again. Now I've got them all uncapped and the Lamy Safari back in there. You can see it's still a big pen. These number 8 nibs look fantastic, but it does come in slightly closer in length there than to the C80, but considerably bigger there than the others. All of these pens post, and when it's posted you can see it is longer. This is not a pen that needs to be posted in the hand. If you like to post your pens, if you want to post your pens, it absolutely can, but as you'll see in a second, it is absolutely big enough in the hand unposted. So what are the specific dimensions of the Asvine C2000? Well, it's 156 millimeters when it's capped, so long. It's 140 when it's uncapped, so it's the length of some fountain pens in entirety when it is uncapped. Posted, it comes in at 184, so it is quite long. It does post relatively securely, like that's definitely not coming off, but it is quite long. The pen weighs 38 grams. 26 in the body and 12 in the cap. So the balance isn't bad. Like, it's not back weighted. It's not a super heavy pen for its size, but it does feel quite long. The grip section is about 12 millimeters, and around the cap is about 17. So it's also got a nice girth to it. I generally write with this pen unposted. It's a nice size, it feels very good, the balance is really great in this form, simply because all the weight is then led down to the nib, which is my preferred sort of writing style. So we have the Asvine C2000 fountain pen. As I said, this is often called the sunset finish. It's really very beautiful. This has a number 8 steel nib, and I have it here in the fine, and it is not a fine, but it is, as you can see, slightly stubby. The ink I have in this today is a diamine, and it's an ink I've not used anywhere near enough recently. It is Oxblood. Really cool ink, browny, dark red, rich and, you know, moody, and fits in with my aesthetic very nicely. This pen writes pretty flawlessly. It's not super wet, but it's definitely on the wetter end. Reverse writing is insanely pleasant. A little bit of feedback, but like it takes it from a relatively broad fine to like something akin to probably closer to an extra fine, but it's entirely doable. As I said, right side up, the nib has a slightly sort of stubby nature to that fine. You don't necessarily notice it in writing, or at least as a left-handed writer, but you do notice it in print. You can see just ever so slightly there. Fast writing. Keeps up, no issues. I don't have issues with skipping, hard starts, anything. I haven't had any issues with drying out. I haven't had any issues with long writing sessions. I've done all of that with this pen. I've left this pen at times for a couple of days without writing with it when I've been writing with other pens. You pick it up, it writes straight away. So whatever they did, I assume involving that liner, to improve the cap seal has done an amazing job. Like, Oxblood being one of those browny red inks is one that can dry out a little bit quicker. We don't see that with this pen. It is flawless. If I just do a little bit of right-handed writing. It writes beautifully there as well. Once again, you're not necessarily noticing the stubbiness of the nib in writing. It's not that pronounced, but if you look up close, sort of here, you can definitely see that the downstrokes are wider there than the crossstrokes. But this is a really lovely pen to write with. It writes beautifully, it writes consistently, it's smooth, it's relatively wet. It's a nice size in the hand. Like, on a pen this size, having a number 8 size nib feels in proportion. And I've spoken before about how, traditionally number 6 size nibs are my sort of go-to. And I'll just pull up a number 6 size nib here on a Bennu pen. One thing I kind of like here is that while it's a number 8 size nib, we're talking about differences of millimeters, not like, when you jump to like a number 9, which is just so huge. This nib sits relatively deep in the feed. So, we're not getting, a massive nib out the front of the pen. And also, as I said, with a pen of this physical size, having a larger nib feels in proportion. For me, it just takes a little bit more getting used to being that far away from the page. Number 6 is sort of where I feel most comfortable. Maybe that's just because that's what I'm used to, but that's what I'm used to. So yes, beautiful writing pen. Let's talk about pros and cons. Very quickly before we get into pros and cons, because it does absolutely tie into the pros of this pen, is the fact that this pen retails for around the 70 to 75 Australian dollar mark. Now, you can get this on Amazon, eBay, AliExpress, all those kinds of websites. And the price varies depending on your seller, but I've seen it around that 70 to $75 mark, a number of times. That makes this a remarkable pen. Because not only are you getting an interesting material, a big pen with a beautiful nib, but you're getting it at a price that competes very favorably, not just alongside Chinese pens, but alongside pens from, European brands as well. So what are the pros and cons? Well, okay, the cons. Let's be honest here. This design is not going to be for everyone. The branding. It's big, it's in your face. People have said they don't love that. The flat top rounded end does feel a little unbalanced, not to me, I should say. Some people have commented that it feels unbalanced. I don't agree with that. As I said, I write with this pen, unposted. So it feels very comfortable, very natural. And I don't mind the fact that it's got a slightly different shape to the standard cigar-shaped pen. It's one of those, people have a go at you if you do the same thing as everyone else. And then as soon as you do something different, everyone has a go at you. It's kind of what's going on here. The only thing about the design that I don't love is the clip. I feel the clip is like maybe half a centimeter too short just for this design. It also means that, you've got to have a pocket that's at least that deep for it to fit in, or, an elastic on a, pen case that fits there. It's a functional clip, but a slightly longer clip would feel just a little bit more balanced to my eye. That's my only real issue. Other than that, it's a great size pen. The weight feels fantastic in the hand. I love the fact that it's this stabilized wood material, which means we get these beautiful, swirls and, grain of these different colors and all that kind of stuff. It's really nice. The balance in the hand, it feels really good, as well as, just the general sort of texture under your fingers feels really nice. I love the fact that this cap liner means we get beautiful smooth threads that feel secure. I have no, issues with that. And then I love this nib. As I said, it is a broad fine. It writes more like most mediums in my collection. I love that. Maybe it's a fine medium in that way. Like it's kind of like a broad fine or a fine medium, but it writes wet, it writes smooth, it writes consistently, and it's a joy to write with. I love writing with this pen, and I think more so than I enjoy the V800 actually. I really like this pen. I think this is a really wonderful pen to write with. But for me, there's something about the comfort of this pen, the way the section is in my hand, the weight of it, the balance, it's really, really phenomenal. So is it going to be for everyone? I don't think so. Is it for me? Absolutely it is. So a big thank you to Asvine for providing this pen for me to review and to show you. I hope you found it interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you would like to support my channel, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.